Brexit is in chaos and the United Kingdom is barrelling toward a cliff edge. 2.5 years after the British public voted to leave the European Union, politicians in Parliament still can't work out how to make that work. But we're going to escape the bubble of political insiders and find out what the real British public think about Brexit. Our journey will take us to the Welsh valleys, up to the Scottish Highlands and even out to the Northern Irish border to find out people's hopes and fears about Brexit. Before we depart, a quick recap. In June 2016, the UK voted to leave the European Union, a political and economic club of 28 countries. Britain's exit from the EU, commonly referred to as Brexit, requires all the major players to agree on a divorce settlement. But they haven't.
The only way to avoid no deal is to have a deal and to agree a deal. And the deal that is on the table, the deal that the EU has made clear is the only deal.
Can you take us to Brixton? Okay, thank you.
Our first stop is just 3 miles from Parliament, to Brixton. It's in the borough of Lambeth, which had the highest percentage Remain vote in the UK. What do you think about all the chaos that's happening at the moment, 2.5 years on?
Well, I think after 2.5 years, I thought they would have come up with some sort of solution, you know, for the best of Britain and for the people of the residents of Britain. A lot of confusion at the moment, you know, especially, you know, within London.
Some people here are hopeful Brexit can be overturned.
So Simon, you work in Brixton. It's the heart of Remain really in the UK. Yet we're about to leave the European Union. I mean, what do you think about this chaos that we're in at the moment?
Well, I'm not sure we are about to leave the European Union. That's still up for grabs. I think we're faced with two very difficult choices: political mess or an economic mess. I'm very worried. Yeah, I think these are very parlous times. So I see potential scope for right-wing populism, as we've seen across other European states, as we see in America. Everyone I mix with, almost without exception, is a Remain voter. I mean, this is, you know, we're in the metropolitan south, and the southern middle classes are firmly in favour of remaining.
Simon was right. Lambeth is a Remainer bubble. To get the bigger picture, we left London and caught the train to Wales. Despite receiving millions of dollars in EU funding as one of the poorest parts of the UK, most Welsh people voted to leave the European Union. We arrived in Cardiff, one of the few places in Wales that voted to remain. I met up for a pint with Dave, a construction worker, to ask him why he thinks his fellow Welshmen wanted out.
When you're calling a vote like that to the general public, I think you're asking someone, do they want to change or don't they want to change? And I think the answer, what you got, is the vast majority of the country wanted to change. Yeah. And politicians, I don't think they've done themselves any favours. To be honest, I think if we do leave, I'd be sad if they closed the borders, because that's a stupid idea. We're way too integrated. You can't reverse it now. If they made a law, it would be unpoliceable.
The next morning, day 2 of the road trip, we drove up from Cardiff to Blaen y Gwent, Wales's Brexit heartland.
Europe have given farmers, particularly in the hills of Wales, stability and security.
William Jenkins has farmed sheep and cows here his whole life. His family has worked this land since 1911.
Grace, lay down, Grace. We had a market for our animals, and that's why I'm a little bit afraid now what's going to happen is we're going to lose the market that we have fought for over the years through Europe and producing a product which they want in Europe. And I'm a bit concerned that we might lose our security. Only 5% of the sheep meat we produce in Wales is eaten in Wales.
Right, so you need to sell it abroad. You need to sell it to Europe.
Europe and to England and Scotland and homebred, but there's a third of it goes to Europe. Now, if we lose that market, or if that market is still there with a tariff on it, that'll fetch our product down in price. Therefore, farmer security will suffer through it. Get by. I am disappointed we're coming out, but we are where we are, and we've got to make the best of a bad job. And if we leave Europe without any sort of deal in one respect, we could be in serious trouble of farming, particularly in the hills of Wales.
William made a passionate case, and it's one echoed by many Remainers across the UK. But polls still suggest that millions of people, even today, still disagree. To find out why, we needed to go to Boston, the English town that gave its name to the city in Massachusetts. It's also the Brexit capital of the UK. Nearly 80% of people voted out. Alan and Jenny, who lived in Boston their entire lives, wouldn't tell us which way they voted, but they gave us some insight into why so many people in their hometown voted to leave.
To have such a big influx of non-UK nationals coming into a relatively stable population in a fairly short period of time just upset the balance.
Boston saw a huge spike in immigration in 2004 when 10 new nations joined the European Union. This meant that people from places like Latvia, Estonia and Poland were allowed to pick up and move to the UK, just like that.
Evidence shows that immigration is positive for the economy, generally.
It is.
Did you not see that?
And I think if it happened over a larger period or a longer period of time, it would have been more well tolerated.
We left one heartland for another, making the 300-mile journey north to Edinburgh, the capital city of Scotland, which overwhelmingly voted to stay in the EU. We met up for a drink with chef Jamie McCormack in the city's Old Town.
My country people did not vote to come out of the European Union. England took us out.
But wouldn't it be a crisis of democracy if we had one result in 2016 and then another result this year?
Isn't it a crisis of democracy that Scotland are being dragged out of the European Union against their will? Only on the votes of the English people.
Leaving Edinburgh the next morning, we drove through the Scottish mountains up to the freezing northern coast, to Moray, where the vote on Brexit here went right down the middle. We met up with Sandra Campbell, who was out for an evening walk on the beach.
What's it like to live here?
Oh, fantastic. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, and it's such a blessing to be here. Life's not so complicated as Westminster. I voted to come out because my brother's fisherman. Fishing-wise, get a rough deal, so really we need to come out.
What do you say to people now who are seeking to overturn your decision?
Well, I think they should leave it to go to fruition and just for it to play out. I think most of us have about had enough of it at the present moment. I don't think we should have another referendum.
But not everyone is so optimistic about the future. Next, we flew to the fourth and final UK nation, Northern Ireland. It was plagued by a 30-year conflict known as the Troubles. Some fear Brexit could provoke a return to violence not seen since a peace deal in 1998. It's become one of the major sticking points in the Brexit negotiations. We headed to Derry, also known as Londonderry, a city just a few miles from the border, on the would-be front lines of any post-Brexit tension.
I can tell you this town's come on so much in the last 30 years.
Near the city's peace bridge that was paid for with EU money, we met up with Gavin Morrison, a local health worker.
Nobody wants to go back to violence. I think it would take an awful lot to bring us back to violence, but at the end of the day, you can never say never.
And this area, 80% of people voted to remain, as did most of Northern Ireland, and yet you're still being dragged out of Europe by the rest of the UK. I mean, how does that feel as a local resident?
Well, it just feels that you're getting your democratic right has been taken away from you, because at the end of the day, we voted to remain in Europe, and they're deciding to take us out against our will.
We're really close to the border here. Do you worry about what might happen after Brexit?
Absolutely. I worry about the border, and I worry about other things too. Like I'm using it to put the price of things up. Families here are already struggling with the wages and the cost of living here. But if they put things up anymore, how's people going to cope? I can tell you, people grew up here getting used to having nothing. Now we have something, we want to keep it.
But like we've seen elsewhere in the UK, not everyone here in Northern Ireland agrees.
I voted leave because of the cheap foreign labour that is flooding into this country, diminishing pay and conditions for the workforce.
The constituency of North Antrim had the highest percentage leave vote in Northern Ireland. We met up with David Henry, a dock worker in the coastal town of Ballycastle.
Westminster's in chaos. We've had dire economic warnings about the future of Brexit. Has that changed your mind at all about voting leave?
No, not one bit. Westminster has lost touch with the people. They have lost touch with democracy. We voted leave overwhelmingly to get out of Europe, and we want out.
And what do you say to people who want a second referendum or even want to overturn Brexit?
Well, how many times are we going to vote? Is it going to be the best of three? The country voted to leave for good reason.
And that's the bottom line for you?
That's it. It's so simple. It's democracy. We voted to leave, we have to leave.
Simple. That's what Brexit was meant to be. A simple democratic vote, in or out of Europe. Right now, it looks like anything but.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.